There's a particular kind of person you've met, even if you couldn't name what made them different. They don't talk the most. They don't need to. When they do speak, something shifts. Not because their words are louder, but because somehow everyone already knows those words carry weight. They don't seem rattled. They don't seem to need anything from you. And somehow, without announcing it, without campaigning for it, they end up holding most of the cards. You've also met the other kind. Smart people, hard-working people, people with good values and genuine intentions who keep finding themselves on the wrong end of decisions, relationships, and rooms. They give more than they get. They explain themselves constantly. They wait for fairness to arrive like a bus that's perpetually delayed. The gap between these two types of people is not talent, it's not luck, and it's not cruelty. It's a particular quality of perception, the ability to see clearly rather than comfortably, to respond strategically rather than emotionally, to understand the world as it operates rather than as we were told it should. Machiavelli spent his life mapping this gap, not to celebrate ruthlessness, but to document reality with the kind of unflinching honesty that most writers, then and now, lack the nerve for. He is still misread as a villain's handbook. He is more accurately a survival manual for anyone willing to stop sleepwalking. What follows are 7 principles drawn from that tradition. They are not about becoming someone harder. They are about becoming someone clearer. 1. Stop living in the draft version of reality. The most expensive mistake most people make isn't a bad investment or a wrong turn. It's a category error. They treat their assumptions about how people should behave as though they were facts about how people do behave. The logic goes something like this. I'm honest, so honesty will be returned. I work hard, so effort will be recognized. I sacrifice, so loyalty will follow. These feel like reasonable expectations. In a designed world, they would be. In the actual world, they are a liability. Machiavelli's warning, that a person who insists on acting rightly in all circumstances will come to ruin among those who don't, is not a call to abandon integrity. It's a call to stop confusing your internal compass with a description of your external environment. Your values tell you how you want to move through the world. They say nothing about how everyone else is moving. The practical shift is this. When someone disappoints you, the useful question is not how could they. That question is emotional, and emotion here is a dead end. The useful question is, what did they gain? People are extraordinarily consistent in pursuing their own interests. Even generosity, at its root, tends to produce something the giver values, a feeling of virtue, a sense of identity, a social signal. This isn't cynicism. It's a more accurate map. When you stop being shocked by self-interested behavior, something important happens. You start predicting it. Betrayals stop feeling like ambushes and start feeling like outcomes you could have foreseen with clearer eyes. The goal isn't bitterness. The goal is accuracy. A sailor who respects the ocean's indifference doesn't love it less. They navigate it better. 2. Silence is not the absence of power. It is its purest form. Observe any social environment long enough and a pattern emerges. The people doing the most talking are rarely the ones doing the most controlling. They are performing, filling space, relieving their own discomfort with noise. And in doing so, they are giving things away. Every explanation you offer tells someone where your anxiety lives. Every defense you mount tells someone you consider them a credible judge. Every plan you announce before executing it invites interference, from well-meaning friends whose fear gets layered on top of yours, from competitors who now know your direction, from the subtle psychological mechanism that rewards announcement with the same dopamine hit as accomplishment, quietly draining the motivation to actually follow through. The discipline of silence is not about becoming cold or unreadable. It's about understanding that most of what we feel compelled to say in real time serves our own need for validation rather than any strategic purpose. Test it simply. The next time someone challenges or criticizes you, resist the reflex to explain or retaliate. Instead, pause. Hold their gaze. Let the silence sit. Watch what they do with it. Most people cannot tolerate a void. They will fill it, often with the very self-doubt or overreach they were trying to project onto you. Silence is not absence. It is pressure. And in a world of noise, the person who controls their output controls the room. 3. Your public face is a tool, not a confession. There is a version of authenticity that is actually just a lack of self-awareness dressed up as a virtue. "I'm just being myself" often translates to, "I am reacting without filter," and calling it honesty. The problem is that raw, unmanaged reaction is not who you are at your best. It is who you are at your most automated. And automated responses, by definition, are being controlled by something other than your own considered judgment. Skilled navigators of social environments understand that how you present yourself in a given context is a choice, and that choosing deliberately is not the same as being fake. A surgeon who remains calm during a crisis is not suppressing their authentic panic. They are operating from a version of themselves that serves the moment. The emotion is real. The expression of it is chosen. The particular Machiavellian wrinkle here is the strategic use of apparent vulnerability. If you are consistently the most polished, most capable, most unflappable person in a room, you will generate not only respect, but resentment. People will unconsciously position you as a threat. The occasional deliberate disclosure of a small uncertainty, a minor gap in knowledge, a question you don't strictly need answered. These gestures do something sophisticated. They give others a point of connection, a reason to feel useful, a way to lower their defenses. You are not diminishing yourself. You are adjusting the temperature of the room. The mask, used this way, is not dishonesty. It is calibration. Know which version of yourself to bring to which situation, and understand that having range is not weakness. It is precision. 4. Your critics are more useful than your supporters. Most people organize their social world around the goal of generating approval. They measure success by how many people like them, and experience opposition as failure. This has things exactly backwards. Your supporters tell you what you want to hear. They round up. They omit the uncomfortable parts. They do this out of affection, which means their feedback, however warm, is structurally unreliable. They are not lying to you. They are protecting you. And protection, here, is not the same as help. Your critics, particularly the hostile ones, are doing something far more valuable, even when their motives are ungenerous. They are actively searching for your weaknesses. If they find one, they'll use it. And when they use it, they show you something your friends never would. This requires a particular kind of emotional judo, taking the energy of an attack and redirecting it as information. Where exactly did they land the blow? Is there something real there? A genuine gap in skill, preparation, or judgment? If so, that hostility just gave you a roadmap. The appropriate response is not gratitude in any sentimental sense, but something more useful: the cold, quiet decision to close the gap. If the attack is groundless, if it comes simply because you're ahead of them, because your progress unsettles their sense of the order of things, then it is confirmation of a different kind. You are doing something worth opposing. Opposition is a compass. The question is whether you have the discipline to read it, rather than just react to it. 5. Compress time, and you compress the competition. The most underrated competitive advantage available to anyone right now is simply the willingness to think in longer increments than everyone else. We exist in an environment engineered for immediacy. Every system around us, notifications, algorithms, delivery windows, content formats, is optimized to shrink your time horizon to the smallest possible unit. The result is a population that is genuinely struggling to defer anything. 3 days without visible results and the effort is abandoned. 5 minutes without a reply and the anxiety starts. The person who can genuinely think in years while everyone else thinks in days occupies a different game entirely. They are not competing on the same terms. They make decisions that look strange or even passive in the short run and look inevitable in retrospect. They absorb short-term discomfort without mistaking it for failure. They plant things they will not harvest immediately, and they do it anyway, because they understand that the harvest is real even when it isn't visible yet. This is not a personality trait. It is a practice. The specific practice is learning to interrogate your impulses before acting on them. Not whether you want to do something, but whether, from a vantage point years ahead, you will be glad you did. The people who build things that last are not more talented than the people who don't. They are more patient. Patience, practiced seriously, is one of the rarest things in the world right now, which means it is also one of the most powerful. 6. You cannot pour from an empty position. There is a particular kind of person who gives constantly, sacrifices habitually, and says yes reflexively, and who, if you examine the situation closely enough, is not actually being generous. They are avoiding the discomfort of being perceived as selfish. These are different things, and the distinction matters. True generosity flows from surplus. It is a choice made from a position of stability. What most compulsive givers are doing is something closer to preemptive appeasement, offering things they cannot afford to give in exchange for a social safety they never quite achieve. They end up depleted, quietly resentful, and no more secure than when they started. The more honest and ultimately more useful orientation is this: build your own foundation first, completely and without apology. Your health, your financial stability, your clarity of purpose. These are not selfish priorities. They are the preconditions for being genuinely useful to anyone else. A person operating from exhaustion and scarcity has very little to give. A person operating from strength has resources that actually mean something. Saying no is part of this. The social pressure against it is enormous, but the logic is simple. Every yes that doesn't align with your actual direction is a no to something that does. Your time is the one resource with no replenishment mechanism. Spending it in ways that systematically undermine your position is not virtue. It is erosion. Respect, in the end, is not won by being endlessly accommodating. It is won by having limits that are real, by being someone who means what they say and doesn't say things they don't mean. 7. Transmute the energy, don't drain it. Everything that has come before this depends, ultimately, on what happens inside the space between stimulus and response. Most people have no space there. Something happens, and they react. Someone disrespects them, and they retaliate or collapse. A plan fails, and they catastrophize or quit. They are, in the most literal sense, being operated by their circumstances. Input produces output with no meaningful processing in between. The practice that changes this is not the suppression of emotion. It is the redirection of it. Emotions are energy states, real, physical, powerful. Anger, grief, fear, humiliation. These are not problems to be eliminated. They are fuel sources that most people simply waste. They leak out through complaint, deflection, numbing, or explosion. And then they're gone, having served no purpose except their own dissipation. The alternative is to learn to catch the energy before it dissipates, to feel the full force of something, the humiliation, the rage, the grief, and ask not how do I get rid of this, but where can I put this to use? The answer is almost always in the direction of your actual work, your actual goals, the thing that would prove something worth proving. This is the inner architecture that everything else rests on. You can learn all the external principles, the silence, the positioning, the strategic patience. But if your emotional state can be hijacked by anyone with a sharp enough word or a well-timed slight, you have no stable ground to operate from. The person who can receive pressure without being reorganized by it, who can feel the full weight of an experience and metabolize it rather than be consumed by it, that person is, in any room, the most dangerous one there. not because they are aggressive, because they are settled. The view from here. None of this is about becoming someone your past self wouldn't recognize. It is about becoming more fully in control of who you already are, removing the automatic patterns, the people-pleasing reflexes, the confusion between being liked and being respected, the habit of mistaking your preferences about human nature for facts about it. The shift, when it happens, is not dramatic from the outside. You don't suddenly become the loudest person in the room. You become instead the one people unconsciously orient toward, the one whose silence carries weight, the one who doesn't need to explain themselves because their behavior already has. Machiavelli's real contribution was not a manual for manipulation. It was a refusal to look away from what he saw, a willingness to describe power as it actually operates rather than as we might wish it did. That clarity is available to anyone willing to trade the comfort of flattering illusions for the more durable advantage of seeing things as they are. The game was always in session. The only question was whether you knew you were playing.